Welcome to the friendliest campus in the South.
Shotgun, Blanchard, one back set, rolls right, pressure coming, throws, Middleton, got it! He scores!
To the gym of the hills.
He moves it to left. That one's pretty well hit. Hall on the run. That ball is gone.
Home of the Jacksonville State Gamecocks.
Over the day, over the Hall. He fires up at the buzzer and drains the three. Good defense by Cunningham. Gregory releases away. Pulls up. He checks.
This is your podcast for JSU Sports.
High fly ball. Center field. It is back. It's out of here.
With your hosts, Brandon Owens and Cody Hooks. This is Cocky Nation.
What's going on, FCS Fan Nation and JSU fans, to another Cocky Nation podcast. Brandon, I just got to say, we got to update that intro. That picture is from like 3-4 years ago of me, and like I'm married now, so we got to update this. So not that I don't love my Southerners pictures, but you know how it'd be. But,
we'll do it after this season.
Right. So again, welcome to Cocky Nation podcast, all things Cocky Nation, as well as things that we start to transition into the FBS world. But to kind of get us started, Brandon, can you tell us a little bit about what happened with our volleyball team?
So yeah, in a little to kind of tie into this, the more dominant sport or conference in collegiate volleyball is the Big Ten. And we went to Indiana University in Bloomington, like the Indiana University. We went to their tournament, and we had a clean sweep. We beat each team 3-0. So we beat Chicago State, Indiana State, and Indiana. That was our first big win over a Big Ten school. And I think big win in period, like in volleyball D1 history. So congrats to the Lady Gamecocks on having a clean sweep at that tournament. I mean, it's not easy to beat a Big Ten volleyball team. So congrats.
Oh yeah, and definitely, as well as we also did pretty good with Clemson not too long ago as well. So it's very good. You know, we are proud supporters of all JSU sports, for everything from football to golf. As somebody that is more into golf now than I ever thought I would be.
You can have that sport.
I know, right? But we are here to talk about football more predominantly because it is football season, and we have not recorded in 2 weeks. We wanted to kind of get our feet wet, kind of. And speaking of feet wet, we'll talk about that Stephen F. Austin game. But the kind of get us started, the JSU football season started in the Crampton Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama, as we played Stephen F. Austin. And if you weren't watching that game, you were living under a rock. But we took on number 10 Stephen F. Austin, and although the game was cut short due to weather, the JSU Gamecocks were leading that game and won that game 40-7. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to catch all of the game. I was watching actually from home. It was my wife's birthday, just kind of celebrating her. And my birthday was the following day. Talk about luxury of having your dates memorized. But this was actually a very good game. I really thought that this was a good game. I think that us as a team, we suffered from what we usually do, which is first quarter jitters is what I like to call it, where we made a couple mistakes. Maybe I can't remember. I think we threw a pick 6 in the first quarter. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we were just kind of sloppy, just a little bit. But we managed to come back. We were on a roll, and then, like I said, getting your feet wet. If you were down there at the Crampton Bowl, it decided to monsoon, and on top of that, it started to thunderstorm, and that's why the game cut short. But overall, JSU took the title for that game. Brandon, you were at the game.
Yeah, I was soaked by the time I got back to the car.
And it was, I thought it was a really good game. Brandon, is there anything for the game that you would like to add before I talk about the elephant in the room?
Yeah, so I was very surprised at how, I don't want to say bad SFA was, but I was very surprised at how they underperformed. The game started out slow like we thought it was going to start out. And then JSU just took over, especially in the third quarter, scoring 21 points and holding Stephen F. Austin to absolutely nothing.
Oh yeah.
The biggest question that we had was who was going to be QB1, and I think that was answered. We'll dive more into that situation because we have a question about that I came up with because, I mean, all JSU fans were thinking it. And I'm pretty sure because we saw two quarterbacks play in that game. We saw Aaron McLaughlin and we saw Zion Webb play in the Stephen F. Austin game.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure some people are thinking we might have a two quarterback system. Like I said, we'll get into more of that later.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, at first I was seeing a lot of things from the John Gross era, and I spoke way too soon, saying nothing has changed with JSU. We're going to get our butts handed to us, and that's when JSU, like Rich Rod's JSU, came alive. The biggest thing that I saw from our offense is we are definitely a more up tempo type of offense. So no huddle, like hurry up. And I think that kind of threw SFA off a little bit because they only had film from last year and previous years under John Gross. Well, John Gross didn't do hurry up offense very often. He did, but it wasn't very often. So it was very different. And then my dad at one point, he pointed at how fast they were going. And he said, "This is Rich Rod ball." And so I paid more close attention. And I mean, there was one drive I believe was we scored in under 2 minutes.
Oh yeah.
And even under a minute at one point as well. So I was like, "Good Lord! Like, are we going to put up some serious points this year?"
So to kind of add on to that, we've been talking about the season of Rich Rod for a while now. Ever since the announcement came out that Gross was going to depart, and Coach Rod ended up taking the job. But I was actually recently talking to a buddy of mine who he's a big football fanatic. He's more predominantly NFL, but he keeps up with the college teams as well. And when I told him that our new coach was Rich Rodriguez, he said, "Wait, did you just say Rich Rodriguez?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "West Virginia, Rich Rodriguez." And I was like, "Yes." And he says, "You're going to be good. You're going to be A-okay." And I completely agree with him. Now, where to kind of dive a little bit more into that game as far as stats is concerned, Lewis really carried us as far as on rushing yards. He ended up having about 100 yards, average about 8, give or take. And then I always butcher names. Galvin. There you go. Galvin had 3 carries for 99 yards. Sorry, 3 catches. And I thought, like, offensively, I agree with you. I think we were playing some fastball. We were up tempo. Now, and we'll talk about like the changes that we see in the next game. Where concerned me was Zion was only 9 for 15, and so that's not a terrible number.
No, but
it was a little bit of a struggle.
Yeah, well, the thing is with that, if you want to look at the team stats, we had more rushing yards than passing yards. So, like, we ran the ball against SFA a lot. We had 285 rushing yards to their 70. So, our defense as well is like on freaking fire this year. as usual. So that's nothing new for JSU. But we passed for literally a yard shy of 200. So we almost hit 200 in both passing and rushing. Now, does that mean we're going to be a run offense, or are we going to switch it up? Or we'll get into that a little bit later as well. But I mean, Zion really showed that he can run the ball. And as well as our running backs. Like, I was very happy with our run game. I was pleasantly surprised and very happy with our run game. As well as our passing game, which the passing game came into play in the game against Davidson, which we'll jump into that in a little bit. But yeah, like, we held Stephen F. Austin defense wise, we held them to only 205 yards. We forced 2 turnovers. I'm pretty sure one of them was a fumble and one of them was an interception. We managed the clock fairly well. Wow. Puberty again. We managed the clock fairly well compared to the Davidson game. But then again, like, we'll get into the Davidson game in a little bit, because I have something to say about that as well, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people are looking at the time of possession and being like, how in the world can you put up 35 points when you held the ball for just that length of time?
Right.
So we'll get into that in a little bit. But overall, I was very happy with our performance against SFA, taking down the number 10 team in the nation. And this was a turning point for me as far as like where I thought the team was going to go. And then that just built in the next game. So
before we got to the next game, let's all talk about what came out. So I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday of last week. So to give us some backstory before we get into that actual announcement. So as you all know, we're making the transition to Conference USA, which is great. We're all excited about it. Now, the ASUN conference did tell us, and Liberty and Sam Houston, like, that we were going to be ineligible for the playoffs, which we knew. We knew that we were not going to be able to go to the playoffs.
Us and Sam Houston, because Liberty's FBS already.
Right. But we knew that we were going to be ineligible. But the ASUN conference commissioners and all of them came to us and said, hey, just want to let you know, like, and this was in the announcements when they said this, that even though we were not eligible to go to the playoffs, we could still take the ASUN title for the season. And so fast forward, we beat the number 10 team. We looked solid. We looked like a really, really good team. And what does the ASUN do? What does the ASUN do, Brandon?
They announced that we were ineligible, but we'll have our debate, because my position has changed a little bit, but my feelings about the situation, because there's a whole thing about image and professionalism that the ASUN did not follow through with.
And that's where most of my, like, because again, the more you think about it, like, if you were thinking about this as a logical, like, conversation, you would agree, like, we shouldn't be eligible for it, because we, the scholarships that we have on our team, the fact that we're transitioning out, all those things add into it. But it's the professionalism.
Yeah. And I think all JSU fans are on the same page as far as that's concerned. Like, we have more scholarships. We're in transition to go to the FBS. Technically, we are an FBS team playing an FCS schedule. So we know for a fact that we don't have an issue with being ineligible. It's the principle of the matter that you, from the start, told us that we were going to be eligible. And then behind closed doors, y'all as like the presidents and the commissioner, what have you, made a decision that we were not going to be eligible before the season started, like at the very beginning of the summer. Correct. And you waited this long to make this announcement. Now, I know Barnabas Collins, I don't know if you know who that is. I follow him on Twitter. He's been screenshotting like the emails that he's been sending and receiving from Ted Gumbart. And one of the things said that he was ill, he didn't leave his house, blah, 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 blah. Now, Cody, I know for dang well, if you and I are sick, we are on our phones. We are in bed. We are not leaving the house. We are either
Agreed.
in bed or on the couch or in the recliner watching TV on our phones. Just taking it easy so we can recover. You can't tell me that man, that thought did not go through that man's head of like, oh, maybe I need to tell somebody that, hey, we need to make this announcement before the football season starts. That's what I have an issue with. That's what I have an issue with. The unprofessionalism from our commissioner, Ted Gumbart, soon to be not our commissioner. And I'm not too sure the commissioner of the Conference USA is any better than Beth DeBlanche from the OVC. So yeah, there's all that tea. So I just have the issue with you waiting this long after you made a decision back in May or June. Like end of May, beginning of June. And you waited this long after we had played our first game to say anything. That's what I and most JSU fans, and even the guys at FCS Fans Nation, they even agreed that was a crappy move.
Yeah.
And that something should have been said from the get-go. But as far as like being ineligible, we all don't have an issue with that because we're ineligible for the playoffs. We don't have an issue with that.
I would just like to put a forewarning for anybody that's listening. Yes, we are JSU fans, but we do not technically represent the university and athletics. So don't be coming at them. This is just our opinions and our thoughts. Just making sure somebody hears that. So if somebody starts spreading that information, like, oh, you got some people from JSU that are making some bad reps or whatever. This is just our thoughts. Okay. This is how we feel, but I think we can all agree that several of us felt the same way. It was just poorly done. We can accept how you did, like we can accept why. It's how it was done. I think is where we ultimately came down to. And like in my opinion, it what's the word I'm looking for? It translated how we felt in this next game. Because when we played this past Saturday, we played Davidson at home, and we ended up winning the game 35-17. Now,
as we should have.
Now, a lot of people had made comments about, man, I really thought that this was going to be a blowout game. Man, I really thought that, JSU was slacking in this game. I don't think so. And I'll share my thoughts on all of that in just a second. But to kind of give you some stats first, if you haven't been keeping up with the stats. So Zion played the entire game. He was 9 for 20. Okay. Now that does kind of upset me just a little bit because I'm like, okay, like that number just got bigger. We went from 9 and 15 to 9 to 20. But if you look at his total yardage, it was for 158 yards. That's including passes. It included those big passes. And on top of that, he ran that ball. He had 55 yards of rushing simply on that. So,
which to me is a pretty good balance between.
It is a pretty good balance. He's a big guy. And so we had a lot of really good players that did a lot of really good. LaRoche did really good. Edwards did really good. Both of them had like 72 and 57 yards. So I think we did really, really good as overall in playing this game. Because last time, we played Davidson, we blew them out in the playoffs back in that spring season. But I think overall, though, like I think it was a lot better. And like we're showing consistency. That's what I like. I like that we're showing the consistency both on offense and on defense. Can our defense clean up just a little bit? Sure, but that's an opinion. Now, here are my reasons why I think that we did not have a blowout. And it's for several different reasons. Number one, I'm going to take the environment. Okay. If you were not there at 1:00 in Jacksonville, Alabama,
oh, it was hot. It was hot.
We had Southerners. Speaking of which, Southerners, great show.
Yes, very good show.
We had Southerners that were falling out. we had fans that were falling out because it was just so dang hot and people could not just stay hydrated enough. And so people started to, pass out.
And so temperature wise, it wasn't that hot. It was the freaking humidity because
Exactly.
rain was coming through the area, like
Yep.
around us. So it wasn't the temperature. I think it got into
The
maybe the
80s.
mid 80s, upper
Yeah.
80s, but that humidity sucked.
Yeah. And
Absolutely
so I
sucked.
take that into consideration because it does affect the players and the game. So my other reason why I say that we didn't have a blowout is because, again, like we've already talked about, we're not eligible for the playoffs. We're not eligible for the ASUN title. Now, does that mean that we just give up on the season? Absolutely not, because this is, first off, and this is why I told Brandon, this is Rich Rod's first year. He has to show out. He has to be consistent. He has to show that this is a consistent winning team that deserves to be in the Conference USA FBS division. But at the same time, if I was that coach and I know that my team was ineligible and I knew that my team was not going to go beyond November, I'm not going to wear them out.
No.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to blow them up. I'm not going to expect somebody to do certain plays that potentially may hurt them. Now, I'm going to play the game that I need to, but at the same
With the
time,
exception against certain teams.
with the exception against certain teams, because sometimes you just have to play to that
And we have some of
eliteness.
those teams on our schedule.
And we do, like, for example, we have to be strong, consistent against the FBS team to Tulane,
Tulsa, not Tulane.
Why I can't talk today? I'm so sorry. It's been a long day, y'all. But at the same time, against Davidson, I'm not
A
gonna
non-scholarship team.
a non-scholarship team. I'm not going to wear out my guys.
No.
Now the same reasons as the fact that we didn't see McLaughlin in this game. It was only Zion. Now I think part of that reason as well is because, again, we're not going anywhere. This is Zion's last year,
Right.
at least from what we've been told. So I don't see him. I don't think he's eligible next year. Is he? He shouldn't be.
I think this is his 5th year, unless he took a COVID year.
Technically, if he took the COVID year, which technically I think he was hurt at that time, so I don't know if he would be able to.
Well, no, you can take that COVID year later.
Right. So who knows? He may be back next year. He may not be. But if I was Zion, of course I want to play on my last season because I don't know if Zion's looking to go pro or at least go to the CFL or the
He
USFL.
has a kid. I don't know if he wants to do that.
Exactly. So I would make sure that he gets enough time. Now, I would say later in the season, make sure that McLaughlin or whoever you have planned to take his position gets more time. But those are my categories of why. Those are my reasons why I didn't see this as being a blowout game. Did I want to see a blowout? I think everybody did. I think it would make everybody happy. But at the same time, nobody really some people like blowouts. I like to have a good game that's going back and forth. Like, for example, Florida and Utah and LSU and Florida State, who apparently
that game was just ridiculous.
That game was ridiculous. Brian Kelly. But what were your thoughts on the game against Davidson, Brandon?
So, I mean, we watched the game together, and to me, the atmosphere was very electric, but it was calm at the same time. Because I think everybody expected JSU to win, but I think it was calm because it wasn't more than what it should have been. It was a weird type of environment. Because of that calmness, you still had people on their toes, on edge, I guess you could say. Because, I mean, we only beat them by, 18 points? So, I mean, not close, but, I mean, not a blowout. So, we played a very balanced game. Literally 158 passing and rushing yards for a total of 316. And whereas in the Stephen F. Austin game, our rushing defense was fantastic. Now, part of that is because SFA is a passing team. In this game, Davidson is a triple option team. So they didn't pass a whole lot, but when they did, we held them to 50% of completions.
Right.
So to me, that's pretty good, but they are a run dominant team, which is another reason why this game was not a blowout. Because if you look at the time of possession, Davidson held the ball for 3/4 of the game, 42 minutes and 10 seconds, and we only held the ball for 17:50.
Yeah.
We held the ball for less than 20 minutes and scored 35 points. If that doesn't tell you how bad Davidson is compared to us, people should not be saying anything bad about this game. In a way, this was a blowout. And in a way, it was a blowout because we scored 35 points with holding the ball less than 20 minutes. Like, tell me what team does that.
Right. I completely agree with you. And again, it just goes back to JSU showing that consistency, especially in what I would consider to be a rebuild year, because we are in a rebuild year, and it may not be.
But are we in a rebuilding year, really?
I would say that we are, and that's simply because
maybe rebuilding
my
for
phone died.
FBS, but for FCS, we ain't rebuilding.
No, we're not. But I'm saying it's a rebuilding year because we have a new coach, new coaching staff, and this is. You could call it a rebuild year. You could call it a debut year. Whatever phrase
Debut
you want.
year?
Debut. I can't talk today. You know this. I talk all day because of teaching y'all. But again, I just see consistency. And that's what a lot of people wanted. We're seeing the consistency on defense. Man, there was some really good
5
hits.
fumbles and 3 of them were recovered.
There were some really good hits on defense, guys.
Yes.
There was one that everybody in the whole crowd went, "Ooh." It was
usually under John Gross, we would have gotten a personal foul
or something
penalty, something like that.
Yeah.
Usually when we deliver hits like that, it would be a personal foul. So I don't know what it is with these hits that are different, because a lot of them look the same. But I will say, at least we are not like somebody that wrote a article in the Chanticleer like today, earlier this week, whatever. He said, at least we are not trying to deliver kill blows to a player that is already out of bounds.
Right.
And we all know what team he's referring to when that happened.
Yeah.
If you do not, then you do not pay attention to Jacksonville State football.
Right. Now, on top of the other reason why I keep calling it a rebuild year, because we're also kind of in the process of rebranding. Because we have new uniforms, the helmets look different. Heck, Brandon and I were talking about if you're on campus, you'll see it everywhere. If you're not on campus, you may not see it everywhere, but we have a new Gamecock head that's being used in different places. I would love to see that on a helmet. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you. I think a black helmet with a red outline or a white outline of that Gamecock head would be.
Nah, it needs to be red. It needs to be shiny red.
Yeah, I think it'd be
kind of like the Louisville Cardinal black.
Yeah,
with the red. It needs to look like that, just with that Gamecock head.
Oh yeah, and on top of that, the uniforms look solid. The red looked really good. I'm just seeing really good consistency, and that's what I want to keep seeing. Because yes, we're not eligible. Unfortunately, I mean, it is what it is.
The most we can play for is an undefeated season, and I think that's the goal. I think that's the goal of this team,
which I think is perfect for us, because what if you are a traveling team transitioning into the FBS, what do you want to be the talk of the town when you move? Is it, oh, Jacksonville State went 3-11, blah 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 blah, or do you want them to be like, this is an elite team under a new coach that had an undefeated or close to undefeated season, and they are ready for what is to come. Because I'm telling you, people sleep on FCS teams all the time. Take a look at hold on. I'm on my soapbox now. Take a look at what happened in James Madison.
Oh, I know.
When
I was
James
so proud
Madison
of them. They made me so happy.
Blew out Middle Tennessee.
Now imagine what we can do to Middle Tennessee State.
Exactly. And this is why I'm super, super excited. Now, am I super excited about the people that are in Conference USA? Not entirely. Like
it has
like-
potential. It has
like
potential,
Liberty-
but we really
Liberty
are
and
the
Sam
worst
Houston-
FCS conference right now.
Would I wish that we were in the Sun Belt Conference?
Please.
Yeah, please.
Please.
But hey, I don't make I don't get the bills. I don't get paid to do this. It is what it is. But I would have loved to see us in the Sun Belt, but we can still play people in the Sun Belt. And so that's what I'm excited about. I want people to watch this season, and come October, November of next year, when we go marching into Columbia, South Carolina
Oh yeah.
for
Oh
the
yeah.
battle for the coop. That's what I'm calling it. Battle for the coop.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah.
If we're keeping it PG, battle for the coop. I want people to be afraid of that team. Now, by that point, yeah, maybe we weren't doing. By that point, we're talking almost 2 seasons from now. But I can tell you what: if we stay consistent now, maybe lose a couple games next season. Up to that point, I promise you, South Carolina is going to be scared, and that's what I want.
Oh yeah. Like at least we know next season we can play for a conference title.
Exactly.
So that's going to be the goal of this team moving into next year is
Mhm.
to win a Conference USA title. Now, I hope Conference USA does not go back on their word. As far as I know, we will be eligible for a conference title. I might have to look into that.
And something else that Brandon and I talked about. We talked about it on our way up to the game because we rode together. College football playoff just announced a 12-team playoff setup that, yes, it won't be until 2026, but
I don't care. I am so happy.
we got 4 years to prep for that. Now, is the probability of Jacksonville State or any Conference USA team making it to that 12-team playoff? No, because we talked about how like at least 3 of the teams will be SEC, 2 of the teams will be Big Ten, and the rest of them will come from the Power 5, maybe a couple Group of 5, depending on how they do those seasons. But at the same time, it's the ability to get there. And that's what I want to see. I want people to look at Jacksonville State and watch us grow from not just a small Hobunk town in Jacksonville, Alabama. We're not small in Hobunk. We are an elite team. We are getting better. People should fear us, and we are going to smoke people as the years go by.
Well, here's the thing. I'm hearing numerous, especially like Group of 5 podcasts and some like big name reporters saying exactly what you just said. People, you better keep your eye on Jacksonville State. They have something brewing with Rich Rod. It's JSU will be a force to be reckoned with, especially on the Group of 5 level. And I mean, look at App State, look at James Madison, look at Coastal Carolina. Even though Coastal Carolina, when they first moved up, it was kind of slow. I mean, they had some. I think their first 2 or 3 seasons were losing seasons. But I mean, look at them now. Like even if we have to go through a period of losing seasons to transition, which I don't think we will go through. I think our first season we will definitely finish 500 or above.
Yeah.
But I mean, we will be one of the better Group of 5 teams, in my opinion.
I want to see, and this is hopes here, but I would love to see us start stealing recruitment classes from UAB, from Auburn,
Alabama,
from Alabama,
and
don't get me wrong,
Georgia, Tennessee. This list can go on. Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Florida, FSU.
Hold on. Now I'm a huge Alabama fan. Now, more likely we ain't going to steal any recruiting class from them. because you get those big name teams,
Probably
and then
not.
they're going to end up going to big name schools anyways.
If
they
anything,
leave
we'll get
Alabama.
transfers from Alabama.
But we could get transfers from Alabama. We can steal recruiting class from UAB. We could probably steal some recruiting classes of some 3, 4, 5-star players that may be committed to Auburn, possibly. But I just see us, or Georgia Tech, I see us growing to the point like both the university is growing and our team is growing, our sports are growing, and people should be watching out for that. Like I'm telling you, it may take us a couple years. Yes, we're going to have a couple bumps down the road, but I really do think that this is probably the best thing for us. And I'm so ready for next season to show up, show out, and have people say, them Gamecocks.
Oh yeah. And you do realize what if we are eligible for the Conference USA title next year, you do realize how they have their conference title set up, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a neutral site. Whoever is the highest, whoever finishes with the best conference record hosts.
Mm-hmm.
So
Now,
depending on what happens, I don't think we will finish first next year. It's good to hope.
Now, more than
But,
likely,
I mean, I just would love to host a conference championship game. That would be awesome.
Here's my only issue with that, because if you haven't heard about a lot of the updates with our stadium and what's going on with that right now, the problem is that if we really want to like have a good show out for that, we need to have it at a neutral site. So, for example, I would say if we could host it at Protective Stadium in Birmingham, then that would be awesome because you have enough space to fit our team and then the other team fans. Right now, we really can't do that. If you haven't seen our stadium right now, like a huge chunk of our visitor side has been blocked off because they're in the process of trying to figure all that out. There's a lot. We don't have enough time to get through all that. So we're not going to. But that's probably what's going to end up being the
with that you and I talked about this past
yes,
weekend.
but we don't have enough time to talk about that.
Exactly.
And I'm not getting.
I got another podcast to record.
Yeah, and I'm not getting no cease and desist letter. Okay, so if you know, you know. If you don't, ask somebody that does. Okay, but to kind of look forward, on Saturday at 6 p.m., the Jacksonville State Gamecocks are traveling. We are not at home this week. We are going up to Murray, Kentucky to play Murray State. Now,
which is a beautiful stadium, by the way.
It is a very nice stadium. I see. I'm going to call it Cox by 14.
I don't think I would go that far. Well, okay, I will go further, but I will say this about Murray State. Murray State's also in a transition as well, but they're fully eligible for FCS playoffs and everything. The thing is with them, they are currently about to transition over to the Missouri Valley Football Conference because their other athletics got a bid and got accepted into the Missouri Valley Conference, not the football conference, but the conference. And I think it was, good Lord, it was a while after they made that announcement that their football team was going to be in the Missouri Valley Football Conference. So, I mean, we all know the Missouri Valley Football Conference is the best FCS conference. It's very difficult because of 2, 3, 4 teams that are very consistent, except one of them got blown out this past weekend. So, I mean, I think they are currently trying to build their team to be able to compete in that conference because they have recently started becoming a contender for the OVC title and the OVC AQ for the playoffs. And the more I think about it, they will be in contention again this year. I still think UT Martin will win the OVC title. But I mean, Murray State will probably be right there on UT Martin's heels. So that we're playing probably a top 2, top 3 OVC team, which if you finish in the top 3, you're a good team in the OVC. Like if you finish top 3 in the OVC, you're going to be a good team. Whether you make the playoffs or not, that's a whole nother story. And this is a familiar foe for quite a few players on our team. a few of them are, or a majority of them are new. So like they have never played Murray State ever, but a good chunk of our team is still players that played under John Gross in the OVC, and they remember playing Murray State. So I think that's going to play an advantage. I think it's going to be more along the lines of a 21-point win. But the first half will be close. Actually, I'm going to go the first 3 quarters are going to be close, and then JSU will pull away in the fourth quarter. So I'm going to go with it 49 to 28.
Alrighty then. Well, guys, that calls it for this week. Of course, we want to thank each and every one of you for listening to us. And of course, if you're not following us on all of our social media platforms, it's Cocky Nation, a JSU podcast on Facebook. And then everywhere else, it's Cocky_Nation, as you can see on my video, if you're watching the video from YouTube. And of course, if you're not following all of our other FCS Fan Nation pages, on Facebook and their podcast, please, we highly recommend it, because even though, like we've talked about, we are transitioning, that does not mean that we don't hold the FCS in our dear hearts. So please continue to support them even beyond this season. Brandon, you got anything last you want to add?
Just I'm ready for another weekend of football.
There you go. So with that being said, guys, we just want to say go Gamecocks and
Fear the beak.
beak.